Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. We're doing a lot of astrology with this eclipse. This is Mars, our lunar night. Mars is 15 degrees Cancer, and the moon is 22 Libra. So we have 7 degrees midheaven in Pisces, and the sun is on the 11th degree of Libra. So 1122, we got the ancestral calling. There was 2222, just as I was thinking about the deceased person. And I was thinking to bring you this episode, and this is basically the astrology of the dead. And so a part of it I've already talked before, but this is good reverence for 22 degrees moon and for this 11 degree sun. When astrology strikes, okay, we think about the transits to a natal chart or the progress chart of a natal chart of a living person as when we think about them or when something happens in relation to them. But for those of you that have loved ones that passed away and have thoughts or connections or omens, and just connecting, whether it's ancestors or just loved ones or people that you've encountered or people come to know even after their death, then you would see that the very same trigger points, okay, transits to the natal chart, to their natal chart still work. The person might not be in the physical, but the ongoing developments about that natal chart even after they're gone, okay? So this is where I would say, if you're serious about working with ancestors, or if you're processing through, whether it's grief or whether relational stuff or stuff that's coming up, transits to the chart of a deceased person are very valuable. Okay, you know that something's gonna come up because let's say you have, if this is the moon, then that can be on that day you think about this person, something pops up. Okay, you think about this relative and something pops up. But if it's a planet that takes longer, okay, maybe even Venus, Mars, or even Mercury, going through, let's say, the ascendant ruler, okay, going through one of the points in their chart, you see that on that week, something's gonna come up. You think about them or you talk about them, okay? Or information comes out that's relevant to their chart, okay? You learn more about them. And then there are the longer transits, the Saturn transits, and then the outer planet transits. Those transits is when I say, brace yourself, okay? Brace yourself because there are long transits, and this is a time where you either want to partake in something, the honoring of their memory, that takes time. So maybe a book or maybe something creative. If you have the natal chart, a book or something creative or in honoring of their memory. That might be a good way for relatives or for people that were impacted by this person to process this time, because at the time there's going to be their chart, the natal chart, still having these transits because you're still connected to that person, you're still alive, you're still going through that. So you want to see how that connects to you, and that can tell you of what you can do creatively with that so you process what's coming up better. And this is also when they say the grieving process is not linear, they do mean that, okay? They do mean that, and astrology can show us that, because it's those various transits that occur and activate different parts of the chart in different times. So it could be 3 years, 4 years, the person no longer, but then there's a Saturn to their midheaven, okay? Not like it's a true story or anything like that. And then Saturn gonna go direct. Okay? And so that person's reputation, that deceased person's reputation, is receiving accumulation of karma. Now, if you're the relative, or if you're somebody for whom that was even actor that you admired, or a public person, or a musician that you were listening to, then certain revelations come up, and that can, okay, even affect your life, especially depending on what was the relation, okay? Just like with living people, right? Then we can talk about the outer planets. So before outer planets, let's talk about eclipses. And eclipses changes in the way we see things. Okay, so just the person, Yair Trubelsky, holding you accountable. Just the person who gave me this teaching said, I don't look at eclipses, there's nothing much. It's like it's a change in the way you see things. Like, damn. So that's why eclipses matter so much, because a fated change in the way we see things. You're gonna shift your perspective, and this is usually because some information being exposed. Okay, the person no longer with us, or you grow yourself, and you face a position, okay, certain position. But I think around eclipses, when I did Water Expands Upon Cooling, then the last episode, when I was intuited or almost forced, let's say it that way, to do the 2 marking, that was something that I would later come to understand symbolizes the 2 gender. That was me shifted of perspective regarding, okay, for many things. I'm not going to talk about all of it now. But that was fate. Is like, hey, now you're in that position. You wanted to do that outside of the cult, but look, you still have to do the 2 genders, and whether you like it or not, okay, to be recognized in that sense, so you can keep on recording. Okay, so it's kind of like, hey, now you're getting into that position. That's what this entails, and I have to work your own way out through that. So this is just one of the ways in which an eclipse can affect you, whether you're a relative of the deceased, or you're doing something that's related to what that deceased person did. Even in academics, okay, when you think about philosophers, scholars, get a natal chart. Especially if you're doing thought experiment, probably outside of academia if you're doing that, but you want to get the chart and understand what's coming up for you. And then there are the outer planets, and if you have a transit of the outer planets, okay, Water Expands Upon Cooling began when Uranus was on my lot of spirit, but also Navamsha ascendant of person who inspired me to do of what I did there, okay? And that was Petra de Vries. And yes, only now I think about it, because I was thinking about my lot of spirit. I was thinking about that was their ascendant, or the midheaven, or something like that, in the Navamsha. So yeah, that was their ascendant, okay? So twice 22, okay? They had Sun 22, and then the Navamsha, where after you get 36 years old, they would have ascendant 22, which would be ruled by Venus, and Venus was very involved with their death. So it was not like a woman scheming behind necessarily, but that was the ruler of the Navamsha ascendant also involved in that. That's I think of it now as I speak. It's like, what, that Venus? You know, Scorpio is international language. You think thoughts, okay? Who that Venus? So no, that's the ruler of the ascendant as well. But after 36, it's a different chart. It's the 9 chart, okay, Navamsha chart. So, water expands upon cooling. The season 1 was when Uranus, an outer planet, was on 22-degree Taurus, which was both my lot of spirit, but was also Peter's ascendant in the Navamsha. And that was an entire transit for an entire season to do with water expands upon cooling, okay, happened. So brace yourself. It's an outer planet that's going to reach some spot there, Neptune. I got some couple of years, but brace yourself. And you see, some things are just going to, with Uranus, it just happens. But if you know that, you can prepare. You can do something that's honoring of that person, something that's related to you and to that person, something that you're called in to do. Okay, that can range from, you know, a TV show to building a house, or you know, whether it's planning a monument. But if I think about a longer project that take a lot of time, that would be outer planet, and that would requires you to do certain things, and requires you, it requires that you know, because sometimes you're just going to do it without knowing, and sometimes it would seem to the world as if what has gone wrong with you. Okay, that person is dead. Oh my God, I have to check the Corvan out. Sorry. Oh my God. Because I was saying the person be dead for so and so years, and then I think about Peter when he said about Corvan out. Okay, the guy's been dead for 20 years, but still that was hunting. If you know the story, okay. Gosh, Royce, do something in English. If you know the story, then that was a very famous, very relation, and even years after, okay, Corvinat was the criminal, that died, still they were chasing Peter with that, and still bringing it up, and keep bringing it up. That was really haunting him, and I think like that looks like an outer planet on Corvinat chart doing that shit. Okay, I need to check that. But this is something that outer planet on your deceased loved one chart can bring. People can say like, why you go mad? Why it takes so many years to recover? Well, that can be an outer planet going over, maybe a stellium that they had, maybe a planet that they had. So they can take from range from a couple of years to yes, I'm not talking about Uranus here, because Uranus is like, can be a season, but it can range from a couple of years to decades, and sometimes 2 decades, because that thing will accompany you for as long as the outer planet is in the sign of those outer planets. So depending on the intensity level of what they have there, that can be more or less chargeful to you. So again, this is where psychology is not sufficient in understanding processes of grief, and why at some place anger can be stirred, and some place a fear, at some place a joining or connection, or feeling livelihood, okay, feeling that the person that crossed over is more alive even. Okay, there's various teachings that it can change, because the relation basically goes on, and it's not, you're not imagining, okay, there's some sort of connection, and you're not imagining. There really is something that's being sparked on that deceased person chart. So you want, if you have the deceased person's chart, that can give you kind of like a preview what is expected, okay, So let's say the midheaven stuff about the reputation. Let's say Mars, maybe project that they did, maybe some activity that they did. It could be both of the shadow on the light. Okay, the ruler of ascendant that directly pertains to that person, and that depends on when the ruler was. Okay, what was this person about? Okay, you can learn more what was this person about. And some chart of ancestors we don't have, so we use channeling, and we just receive omens. Okay. But when we have charts, and as a person that did, spirit of matter, I saw that always I would have either the moon or some other planet, mainly the moon, crossing over, and then there would be an episode. And then I saw that some people just stick, they stick around. And I'm like, what's going on there? Then I would have to check the synastry again. And then I would have to check with the transit of that person again. And that would be like, oh, okay. Okay, so that was more than an episode for a reason. And for some people, when they're no longer, I saw it's the same thing. Still the moon would cross something, still that would be spiked up, still there would be a reason that chart pops up, and it still works even if the person doesn't exist here in the physical. So that astrology teaching can probably be useful to you, both with this Rahu Neptune that we're working with. You might ask yourself, am I imagining? And very likely you're not. Okay, you're receiving some sort of reality that perhaps is difficult to interpret, but you're not imagining. Okay, I can say nine out of 9 cases you're not imagining. You just have to read the energy and understand what's going on. And so we have Saturn, that we have Pluto that's about to go direct in Saturn sign. We have Saturn that will be will be co-present in being retrograde with its ruler Jupiter, because Jupiter is stationed in retrograde, but then Saturn is going to go direct, and Saturn is the planet that rules the dead. Okay, and in Pisces is the mediumship. Pluto station in direct, we're talking about the people that died, and really the structure around that. So Pluto uncovering the structure of the lives of the dead as well. Okay, so it can range from near-death experiences to, hey, that soul is going through this right now, that soul is going through that right now, or that thing is coming up from that chart, that thing is coming up from that chart. One important teaching I learned about those Neptunian and Piscean midheavens, or 10th houses, is that person is known after their death, but it's also there's just this thing that they're still alive after they're dead. I don't know how to explain that, but as a person, I'll just look at my own midheaven, which is conjunct in Neptune, and I think about this. It's like, hey, the person is dead, but it's not dead yet. Okay. And so, and that is just something that I ponder about. Okay, there's this eternity, touching of eternity, and surrendering around this, because it's not like, oh, why are you calling? Because there are some traditions where they say, you don't bother the dead, it is too soon, or it is too this, or it is too that. And there are some transits where something is called in, okay? And even after the person dies, that thing still lives on, and is not resting. Okay, I'm not saying the soul is not resting, God forbid, no, not at all. I'm a believer that there's love buffer, okay, for new crossover. That is also the most reasonable belief when you think about just the fact that all this notion of karma that people have doesn't really make sense. Okay, in that sense, like if you really want to resolve problems of trauma, of abuse, or this or that, you really need that love buffer for person to heal, even if they're committed for this abuse. So I believe that that exists. The person does heal, and they're not denied of divinity and denied of godliness or denied of anything. And everybody has their own mindset around that, I guess. Um, yes, I guess I have more positive view of death than others. But then you have to know a lot of energy is invested for you to not be connected to that, including people that went on that experience and didn't feel anything. So a lot of energy is being invested, and I talk about that in other constructs. Okay, so just know that it's not limited to the way that people would think about that, especially not with the cult is memento mori. Okay, remember the day you die, and they teach you to fear death, and they trade in death and in what type of death, so that you will comply to them. So yeah, anything more I have to say about that? Sometimes it can feel, depending on what person left or what is left within you, sometimes it can feel like something is not put to rest. Know that the astrological transits are going to resolve that and are going to put it to rest. Again, if it's longer transit, like Saturn transit, outer planet transit, is going to be put to rest with the duration of the transit. Okay, Saturn is really long, slow moving, so it's long time. Outer planets even longer. But then if it is the moon, it can be a nice thought that you had, or an omen or channeling that you had, or if it is, let's say, even the sun. So it could be a day, I have to admit, when, yes, this year was particularly funny. I think I said I need to rest in peace. And I recorded the song because it was, yeah, I had a case where it was a new moon in Cancer on 6 July. If you know, you know. And I recorded, yes, I recorded the cultified Swiftie, I call it. And then I had so many episodes of Miss That Verslagen coming up, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And I completely forgot it's July 6th. And then the Petroche Oort case came up, because I was big mad about Peter defending Deming, okay? And so we had that conversation. And then 15 July, because I was like, after 6 July, it's like, okay, we commemorated, you don't think about it. 15 July, I was right in my butt then. I don't remember, and I was just traveling the train. It felt like I just want to run away, to escape and stuff like that. And yes, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but it just came back, and I was like, was that Peter? It was like 15 July. Yes, of course it was. And so, and that was just funny. I was like, oh my god, that guy had not one Memorial Day but two. So that was something very memorable. Like, even looking at the chart, and that can simply be, okay, the sun going over for the Memorial Day of the death. So that can be kind of one day. But then, the intermediary stuff, and you think like, okay, it's not this day, it's not that day, what's going on? Oh, it's Mars. Oh, it's Mercury. Oh, it's Venus. And you gotta know the chart, because it's gonna trigger different things. Okay, it's gonna trigger different things. And then there are the longer ones. Okay, so for those of you who seek to connect with your ancestors, that can be a great way to connect. It can also be a play where you're not like me, where you just let things happen, but you plan for it, and then you can plan for the reverence days where it's appropriate with the transit, because sometimes the sun going over is going to give you one thing, but when you talk about something where you don't find words to explain or what's going on, you're bothered about something, you this or that, this is more like a longer transit and you want to commemorate for that. So knowing what the transit is can assist you with what the remedy for that transit is even, okay? Sometimes even knowing, okay, for how long is that gonna last? Okay, let's just wait it out, because that thing brings heaviness or brings karma or brings whatnot. And sometimes understanding, oh, that just happened. Why is that just happening now? Oh, damn, that's a longer transit. So you can do exciting things with that. Um, and allow yourself to be, okay? There's just many ways to commemorate, and many ways in which something can come up. And grief is not linear, but commemorating is not only grief. Nobody said how dead people should feel, okay? So I've been hearing about like dead people have energy that you need to clear out, or you need to wash your hands, or you need to this, or you need to don't do it. It's getting R-rated now. Anyway, and that can be the experience for some. But definitely, if you think about the belief of crossing over, you're more alive than you even in the physical. Then the death can be very lively. I remember when I was saying that, and it's like, no, say lovely. Say no, 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 lively. They can feel more alive, even for when person was amongst the living, okay? They can feel relieved from the burdens that they had when they were alive, or the love buffer can be supported, like the many things. And yeah, and that's something that you want to keep in mind, okay? And then if you have other energies, if you feel like it's heavy, if you feel like it's this, you need to wash yourself or burn sage or whatever, okay, go do that. Every experience is different. Yes, I'm not a big expert on ancestral reverence. I just speak from the astrological point of view. And as well, there are some places, some days where you feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be commemorating, I'm supposed to be this, I'm supposed to be that. Why am I not doing that? It can be that something is simply not crossing the natal chart. Okay, something is simply not triggering any activity right now for natal chart. Or you're processing something, okay, which you gotta give yourself time to do. Our ancestors were human, and they did all kinds of stuff, okay? That are affecting you, okay? And so you gotta give yourself time. Maybe you're processing something. Maybe something contradicts for the way you see things. Maybe your own worldview needs to encompass, okay, something. And so you gotta find your own way, okay, through this, and not shame yourself when you're not doing like this or not doing like that. And just the other day I was thinking, we talk about grieving, and I had one of my family that were grieving their parent, and they could not come to the funeral because this was emotionally overwhelming, and they would take a long time to go to the grave because of how deeply emotionally tied they were to that parent. But the family did not understand and refused to shake the hands when they arrived because they thought they don't care. Okay? And so how something like that can separate families to ways very difficult to bridge, because one person being cast out, even the next generation can find difficult to bridge because they don't want to perpetuate trauma of casting out for that parent. Okay, so this is so important to keep in mind that people grieve differently. One of the things that I was even thinking to do, and I'm not sure it's not going to happen because it's me, was even when I call on for souls of the missing or for souls of people, um, to have also the way of grieving that is to drink in favor of the person or to bring energy out, and that can shock some people. But when you tend to the dead, especially if it's like person got murdered, person you don't know if they're alive or not, person's missing, person this, person that, bringing not only grief to the equation but joy of living to the equation can assist you sometimes. It's not every context, but that is something to keep in mind. Okay, I had a Ukrainian friend, and when their family relative died, they were drinking in memory. Okay, they're having a meal and feast, and they were drinking in memory of that person. It was okay to tell jokes, of to be laughing and to commemorating for that person in that way, whereas others cry for days. And so that is true both to the grieving process and to reverence. Okay, and also when person dies, they are different. They are different. Some things are the same, but they are different because it's another point of view. Okay, and so you might be receiving from your ancestor something that the people who are alive, they don't know this. They didn't have that access to this deceased relative. Okay, they know that person when they were alive and not when they die. So the points of view, how they think, what their perspective, what motivates their actions, okay, that can all change. Um, and this is something you also have to keep in mind. Okay, different relatives or different people that know this person will commemorate the person differently because they've been exposed to stuff that's relevant to them. Okay, and if people are judgmental about this or think, oh, but they weren't like that, they weren't. Okay, that they're in a different, they're very literally in a different place right now, and very literally different people bring up different things and different sides of person, and that changes the format, it changes the energy, changes the channeling. So even if you're channeling, this is why one channel will receive one thing, what another receive another thing is from, even if they channel the same person. Okay, so that is also, something to keep in mind. However you experience it is yours, and it's not because you're imagining, it's because this is what's relevant to you. Okay, this is for the communication, the process that's relevant to you. Even with living people, okay, I had a living person around me that to everyone else he would talk about his stories from the battle. To me, never mentioned that, never came up, never dared to speak about the army next to me. I don't know why, okay, but something they sensed not to speak about the army next to me. But to others, so other people, they would know the person that brags about his army war stories. To me, I don't know, maybe he had deeper wisdom that time, in some way karma, maybe, I don't know. Okay, but he never said a word about army. A word. All I know from other people that he was war veteran, but he never said a word about this. Okay, so you can think about this is true not just to living people, also to people that passed, crossed over. Okay, And some of these encounters, especially if you reach out to distant relatives or to people you didn't know, then some of these encounters can accompany you for years and years. Okay, if I think about, let's say Feynman, and I think about MK Ultra, then me learning about MK Ultra was more than a decade, I think, after I was, learning from Feynman, and that is deeper growth with someone that eventually accompanied water expansive on cooling as well, and the deeper layers, okay, come in to this conversation. And that is something that can happen to you with deceased relatives as well. Okay, I was just watching a tarot reader who began to give reading about soul of a person who was Mason, okay, and with the hidden knowledge that they had. And some of our families, they were Masons and we didn't know it even. It could be born to Mason, or person could be born to Masons, okay? And you have to admit fact, the family might not know, okay? Even if they know the Masons, might not know what degree. So, might not know the two genders, might not know many things that you may know, okay, that you may be exposed to. And so these are deep secrets that one person is open to learning, or even is highly inquisitive in learning, where another person is completely absent to that or sees that differently. Okay, you can say, oh, that person was Mason. Oh, wasn't that the cool Enlightenment folks that created America and stuff like that? And it's like, well, there's all this satanic ritual abuse you didn't know about. Okay, there was all that as well. Okay, so that can take some time to process, even years to process, depending on the person. Some of your relatives can be Masons. It's very likely are. Some of your ancestors can be Masons, and can also have to do with your own incarnations as well. And again, be cautious from those who tell you things about yourself with intention to hurt you. Okay, because it doesn't matter who you've been in the past. Again, when person crosses over, especially now when Pluto is in Saturn type, so we transform karma. Okay. It's not the same karma notion that we had in past. So whoever you were, okay, is not saying for who you are now, and it's not saying that you need to be punished or you need to be mistreated, or these bad things are just gonna happen to you. Just accept it. If this is helping you to think like that, then I'm not here to take away from you what helps you. But also know that if something doesn't fit, okay, something doesn't sit in with you, then understand there's something going on else in that level that okay, that you're meant to uncover. Okay, and so this is also a thing. So trying to think if there's anything more that I want to bring into the conversation as the moon is slowly applying to Spica. You want to take into account that your ancestors balanced things in a different way and they did not necessarily have access to your morals, your values. Okay, and then some of them heal on that. So some conversations are going to be important in the sense that you may find yourself explaining the ancestor, okay? You say, why I need to deal with that? Why I need to do that? Or why can't you just live? I have to deal with that. I have to speak in order to return into my body and to stay in my body, and so on and so forth. So these conversations taking place in a way that they have the love of it to understand and still growing, okay? Um, so and also if again I go to example whether not your relative um, but someone you've encountered or you learned about after they die, don't underestimate the connection, okay? Because there can be karmic thing about this connection, and it can bring a lot of deep things within you that you will need to process. And whether it's a thinker that affected your own thinking, a scientist, a philosopher, author, okay, like actor, whatever, or whatever is celebrity at the given time, or whatever you appreciate, how you ran into whoever it was, then, and if you're doing stuff like water expansible and cooling, and stuff like true crime, with that for cold cases, this may be a person that is died and you're looking into their case, okay, and things come up, okay. I can definitely say that the very first case that I watched from his Stadtverslagenfer is still with me. Okay, and I got before that, do you want that to be a part of that so and so? So I knew that it took me 3 years to look at the show after I learned about Peter, and I knew that yes, that I'm supposed to, this is time, and was choice, yes, to look, okay, and to see, and that led to deeper quest for various things I've seen and deeper awareness. So do not underestimate for the connection and the purge and the overwhelm sometimes. It's an entire connection, okay? It's an entire connection, and it affects you because it touches you, and it touches you because, especially right now when we're around the eclipse, because it's something that you're fated to encounter, okay? So again, if you want to say, okay, I want to stop this, I want to this, okay, it's not the problem. It's more like don't underestimate the effect of something on you, or think it's just, you know, over there, because that's going to accompany you, and give yourself the resources, the time to tend to that. Like instead, the essence of desire, if you talk about cold cases, essence of desire came up while doing water expansible and cooling. And the very first idea I can remember of when I saw Peter doing that, and I saw, well, like, he's connected to his essence of desire, he's connected to the passion, he's connected to joy, he's connected to enjoying, okay, for what he's doing, and that's something that facilitates, okay, success, and facilitates that other people would watch it. But it then became deeper, because when I began to tend to cases, I would go through processes that I cannot even begin to describe to you around this, and essential oils began to be great friends and even a necessity. So in that sense, that was facilitating my being able to do that without, I don't know, getting all addicted to coke or anything like that, which can happen to people. I'm not saying it happens, yes, to others, but it's definitely overwhelming, okay, but it's definitely a calling, okay. There's a calling there, and your soul grows with it, and you have to give yourself the time. It's not going to be the timetable or the schedule of the MK Ultra, okay. It's not going to be Sunday every night, and it's inhumane to expect it to be. Um, I'm not even talking about work-life balance. I'm talking about the stress on the soul and the processes that you do. Even when you do read charts of even leaving people, there's a process you go through that. Okay, even if for the first time I looked at Beyonce chart or the moon Uranus for Beyonce, and then all this explosion going here with the witchcraft, with Jay-Z, with this, with that, and I'm like, damn, I just, it was just a chart I looked into, and the energies with you, okay? So different people have different protocols on how they deal with that or how they tend to that. Um, There's some charts I look at that accompany me today, even of leaving people. People I would talk about something and I would feel a certain energy coming to the forefront. And sometimes that's a platform where they can express their voice where they otherwise couldn't, especially if they're within the cult. Um, and that's that humane, connection that's a part of doing that. So if you're doing something, whether it's like cold cases or you're just an astrologer and you look at different charts, then even if it's not the client you had conversation with, there is a conversation. When you're called to look at something, there is a conversation that happens in the sky, okay, with the planets and the alignments and the charts and the energies. Um, and regardless of what level of, I wouldn't say awareness, but of what level on the 3D it takes place or not, there is a conversation. Okay, so that's something important to honor. Um, and and sometimes you allow for the things to flow. Okay, for me, when I'm tending to charts of political figures, it's a bit different than people who would tend to chart of celebrities. Although now celebrities are becoming like political figures with the MK Ultra information that we know. So everything is different. Okay, the things are different, and sometimes it's a way to take a power back to look at the chart, and sometimes it's a way to understand what is going on in a language that you can speak. Um, so all of the above applies. Okay, all of the above applies. Um, you will be, when you're doing that and you learn how to read charts, um, you will be dumbfounded by the architecture of the sky, the architecture of souls in that sense. And this is beyond any MK Ultra. This is beyond any, conspiracy, not in the sense of something unreal, but in the sense of conspiring that happens. It's just beyond any of that. Um and astrology is a language in which you can address that. Okay, you can go beyond that. You can understand, okay, what's actually happening right now, um, and get a deeper look. Okay, why is this thing coming up? And get a deeper look. Now you have to look at your chart as well, just like as any synastry, any connection between people. What's happening in my chart, what's happening in my life, and then what's happening with this chart. Okay, what's coming up with this deceased person, and it's always in relation to me. Okay, because the way, what the information you will find is, and I teach that also when I talk about water expands upon cooling. I spent most of the first season for that very teaching, because there are the cold cases that you will solve and another person won't, because you got different charts. Okay, when I was looking the case for Cassandra, asteroid Cassandra was on Pluto in my Pluto square. Okay, was a big deal, and I didn't know about this until my colleague Victor talks about asteroid Cassandra. He's a master of asteroids. Okay, talks about asteroid Cassandra, and I'm like, this feels very personal. Like, you really gotta see where's in my chart. Well, it's conjunct in my Ketu. I was Cassandra in one way or another. Okay, the archetype. So it's something that pertains, okay? And so I had more access or varied access for this particular one, okay? Uh, um, and that is also true for if the reason you're communicating on mediumship is with missing people or and so on. So there's always relation to your chart. Why are you the person that finds it out? Why are you the person who solves the case? Okay, you gotta check your chart. You gotta check this person, and the asteroids can tell you. Okay, whether you're closer to truth. The calling. Why am I being called to look at this case? I can also tell you. Okay. Um, and you're gonna be called to look at different cases different time. I am still working on chart of events. Okay, so like some case pops up and then I look at the chart of the events of when I tend to that. And this one still needs work. Okay, the things that come up are important enough to put out, but when it's how vital it is to solving cold cases still needs work. um, so and when you add the missing part, okay, the Neptunian part, then any element you work with you need to tend to, okay. Whereas the Neptune, whereas the Uranus, okay, the Uranus is the more revolutionary or the more scientific, or there's a revolutionary element about your doing that. Okay, there was a revolutionary element about me doing water expands upon cooling outside of the cold, which ended unexpectedly with me being called to do the two gender thingy, not knowing what it means. Way before I saw, actually through Royce, when he talked about the Corvan out, he was showing Peter with Corvan out and Hollandier and stuff, and they were on the plane and Peter was doing the two genders thingy. And I got such a blockade. I was like, don't look at it, don't look at it. I was like, fuck it. I look at it. That's the two gender. Okay? That's the Peter rabbit hole. That's what Mama was talking about. Okay, Mama versus Mafia. And it's a part of the history. Okay? I'm not gonna disown that or pretend it didn't exist. And I was myself called to do for this two gender thingy because there would not be water expands upon cooling outside of that cold that much. And means that for couldn't have been done outside of the MK Ultra. Okay? And I dare say that I believe Peter tried. Okay? So um, so that was the Uranus part, okay? The unexpected eureka, or the rebel that looks into, okay, and takes another take on that, okay, and the liberating factor around the truth, okay. Neptune is Neptune, okay. Neptune has a completely, it's a message in a bottle that pops up and you read a message years after, okay. What was that message? Why did somebody send it? Was it a call for help? Was it a manifestation of a dream? We don't know. What is a love letter? We don't know, okay. So Neptune is that which is missing pops out of the ocean, okay, as Neptune karma. And then there's Pluto, which comes to requires for authenticity, okay. Pluto stuff require for deep authenticity, when you tend to that, and it's something that's coming to turn you more authentically yourself, okay. So I don't know if I've had Pluto cases. Definitely Neptune. What expands upon cooling was entirely Uranian. If we think about Pluto cases, cold cases, Pluto related, then I don't recall, okay. Um, yes, Neptune sextiles Pluto, but I don't know if I tended to something that was highly Plutonian. On the show, I don't remember, okay. I don't want to say of what I don't remember. So um, uh, so I can't give you like a concrete teaching as to what it may be, but Pluto, it's uncovering of secrets in general. It's uncovering of secrets, and nowadays uncovering of strict secret structure. Was this something about Cassandra? Cassandra was highly Neptunian for me. I don't remember if it was Plutonian so much. I think she was of the generation of the Pluto Neptune. So she was born, was it 89? 87? Or the Uranus Neptune? I don't remember. Yeah, I don't want to say what I don't know for sure. Yeah. So, but at any case, MK Ultra listening to survivors of satanic ritual abuse is the basis for anything cold case. Whether you do it for profit or you do it like me, that I did it on YouTube, or you called in to do that, or something that pertains to your deceased loved ones, then yeah, you have to know these things. Okay, otherwise, it's just going to drain you. So I think this is pretty much the teaching. And right now around the eclipse, it's very obvious that such topics come to mind, and it's going to be very useful for a lot of you that watch this, very fated for a lot of you that watch this. Uranus is, simply put, technology to astrology. Okay, this is technology to process or connect with the dead, not by divination in the sense of like a Ouija board or something like that, or science. It's just, hey, why do I think about that? Why does that come up? What was it, an omen or a C2222? Who could it be? Well, who are you thinking about when you're not imagining? Okay, so omens is another fascinating thing, and again, it's very personal. Okay, and you have to take into account that person when they pass away is not the same perspective. Okay, just not the same perspective. I remember in particular it was the name of this scientist, that he was on Epstein Island actually, and he was with the wheelchair, and I was called to do his chart, and I saw deep green light around his heart. So his heart chakra was healing when he crossed over. But in his life, he was in Epstein ring, okay? And that was, fascinating. So I guess if people ask themselves, would the person that hurt them, did they regret it, or did they heal from that, and so on and so forth, then my belief is that that love buffer allows for healing of the heart chakra, which allows for recovery from being an abuser. Um, and I cannot tell you what the time. Okay, and with the blue light is, think about the Kamazolan videos that I did, but also the blue lights of truth. Okay, a person allows them maybe to see the truth or to speak the truth, to recover when they lied to themselves, or when they had to lie to others. Okay, so blue is It's communication, but it's also truth. Um, and so, yeah, that's fair. And blue light is also recover from people who have psychosis. Okay, so the blue light is shielding, protective. Also, when it came to kind of like the laser weapons and so on, we saw that that color was protective. It was one day that I was still dressed in that, all blue. This blue jeans, blue blue shirt. I'm like, why am I blue today? Well, maybe to protect me from, you know, radiation and stuff like that, or whatever they plan to do, wherever. But that was just funny. So, um, yes, this is something that also, okay, that also occurs. Um, then the people say, oh, so people trapped between worlds and this and that. I'm no expert on that, okay? I'm absolutely no expert on that. Um, and again, as always, every communication should be respectful. Every person should be respectful, whether they are shape shifting to your ancestor or your ancestor. They should be respectful to you. So communication has to be, yes, supportive of you. If not supportive, you don't have to communicate. Okay. Um, for the people that say how should we revere the dead and so on and so forth, again, it's a connection. And and in every connection there's the you part and there's the they part, and the communication part. Okay, what you do with the intent of reverence, and it's also within your own limitations, um, is what you can do or can tend to. And sometimes that invites a lot of like non ancestral entities, okay, that try to mess with that. um, that you then you defend yourself from that, okay. um, so you can reestablish connection, okay. That is, you know, highly 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 true. And um, and again, in those times with the Pluto Capricorn, especially if it's like in your 12th house or Saturn in your 12th house, we are uncovering really deep shit. And at those people that crossed over have people that are still living. So, yes, your quest for truth is sometimes a quest for healing. It's just to stay in your body, to stay healthy. And uncovering truth is a part of that, okay? And at the same time, same, it has to be bridged with the living people. Or sometimes you can come into contact with person that's not even a family, and you begin to work through ancestral trauma by just being yourself or asking of what you're asking. And that can pertain. You think about a lot of the public figures, they were MK Ultra. So the people that are relative, many of them within the cult. And so it was a singer that you liked, or this or that, okay, then your connection can sometimes, I'm not saying every cases, but sometimes it does have the effect that you're like the psychopomp of someone, or they learn something from you. Okay, so it's not just you learning from them, you learn something from you. And that changes the course of action, how they decide to help their relatives, and so on and so forth. So do not be surprised, okay, when such things occur. And again, we won't know, okay, we won't know, won't know what of that is on. but what you will experience is what is relevant to you. Okay, just know and understand that even if that's your relative, okay, so the way each person communicates affects for the communication, because now there's something deeper that ancestor knows, and they are seeking to reach out to you and to deliver a different information is updated to the way you've communicated with them. Okay, so let's say somebody wanted you to just retire, to leave, to travel, and you couldn't let go. You couldn't let go because you came here to uncover something, and that pertained to a medical ailment that you have that you need to curate. And so partially they were correct, and partially they were like, well, why can't you let go? Well, you see that thing that happens, or you see I have to return to my body, and to speak helps returning. So they can come with you at you with a different type of experiences and healing that you can get from the other side. Okay, a healing, a different type of experiential healing that's facilitated to you. This is also true when you work with talismans, and that's going to relieve, okay, something, and you know, or they would come with something that's relevant to what you're doing or to your quest. So there's a lot of agency that you have even when you communicate with deceased one. There's a lot of agency that they have. Okay, and so yes, I guess that is a part of a growth that we have in here. Particular transit that can trigger such relations. Okay, so working with ancestry, your fourth house, transits to your fourth house, having major planets or major dashas that bring in your fourth house, your eighth house, okay, and of course the 12th house. Okay, any house where Saturn is, any house where the moon is, any house where the ruler of the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th house are. Okay, so some people even in the second house they get such things, or maybe develop the skill of communicating with the dead is also important. And the last thing is, again, going back to the story of this tarot reader that right in the Lilith eclipse, okay, they were just, wearing usual stuff, and they had some, they had some cleavage, and they got backlash for it. There is no one way in which you communicate with relatives, give reverence to others, receive channelings. There is no one way, and there is no right and wrong way. Okay, so the fact that you're tending to that, you're already way above the rest, the most of the rest. Okay, so there really is, okay, for no one way for that. And those that try to police that usually, as always, okay, are not doing their own thing. Okay, they just try to take you down, but are not doing their own thing. And in a healthy relationship, you can be who you are, but also they can be who they are, and that's, the relation. So that's something to consider, both with the living and with those that are no longer okay with us, as something to consider. Oh, goodbyes. If you have been working through separation issues, whether it's abandonment issues, separation issues, you may be even in a situation where some relative you say goodbye to, or some person you say goodbye to, and you experience that, you might come to the notion that, hey, I never said goodbye in a way where it didn't end up life-threatening. Okay? And that can be a certain experience where either you genuinely say goodbye, which can be, or another thing where they're like, okay, we've released something, whether it's ancestral, whether it's connection oriented, whether it's this, and just like in relationships, okay, sometimes that goodbye is really goodbye, and sometimes it's not. But know that that separation experience is also fated and supposed to keep you in a situation where you process something about separation, you process something about ending, um, and that can in itself be the healing or the recovery. Sometimes neither you nor the ancestor or the deceased loved one will know what it is until it happened. Okay? And again, because of that, love buffer is usually positive. 11 1 1, okay. 1 1 1 1 1, as I was saying that. Okay? So the synchronicities of one is the grand beginning, foundation, initiatory. Okay, people say light workers, whatever that means, but it's 1 1 1 1 1. Okay, and that is just so ominous that this is something that needed to heal around separation trauma that was getting there. We talked about endings, talked about birthing. That has a lot to do with recovery. Okay? That deserves an episode of its own, but that has so much to do with our life experience. And it's not for nothing that the Rosicrucians try to interfere in that malefically in every way possible. And it's not for nothing that some of the major near-death experiences feel like birthing or rebirth. Okay? If I recall Ronald Bernard's near-death experience, which he talked about, he was seeing a birth. Okay? And that which there's a lot of healing of that experience that happens where the person is recovering just because of that. And okay, another channeling I got was when I listened years ago to channeling of Nick Drake, and he talked about what the experience in the womb and how there are waves that he used to heal that, and that can curate depression and so on. The power of waves in healing and so on. That we're probably going to see with Pluto and Aquarius, Aquarian age. Okay. You might also receive what trauma was sometimes at birth that caused things that you find challenging to explain. Okay. We talked about expandable children. You understand that, okay? It's those things, and very intense. But I also want you to know that part of a near-death experience can be curation of that. So and whenever soul is open to that, that can also be. Okay. So I see you in another episode, and thank you for watching.